I would like to pay attention to the fact that we're talking about the fate of the Eastern Partnership. I would like to pay your attention, not just the Belarusians spoke about it, that Putin's actions are identical in all the post-Soviet countries. That's his strategy, divide and conquer, not just in the Eastern Europe, but in entire Europe. And the strategy is extremely effective because they use interest of other countries to promote their own interest. And the fact that among the countries of the Eastern Partnership will be excluded 3 countries, also Belarus. We also hear that we should deepen what the partnership gives to the Ukraine and other countries after the ratification of the association agreement. But we see that it's not being fully implemented because European Union, the trade agreement has not been implemented between EU and the Ukraine. And of course, that today we can observe the situation. I would like Ms. Koval or maybe somebody else from the Polish members here would comment on the words from the Polish Foreign Ministry. We should freeze the conflict in the Ukraine and talk about the Eastern Partnership with Putin. And there are talks about the visit from Lukashenko and signing the agreement. And right now we say that we're talking with Azerbaijan, Ukraine, Belarus, but in theory we know that we're talking with people in power. And where is the civil society in this? The Belarusian society did not vote against the European integration. And right now we should know that the strategy of integration with the EU, it's a strategy against dictatorship from the East. And of course we know that those answers from today, these are the answers from 1938. Appeasement, withdrawal, and withdrawal from the different democratic values. It's not a good path. Democracy is not perceived as the right of each nation. And the nations are being divided again for the second rate, first rate, just like Belarus, that it's not somehow capable of democracy. And of course that the effect of such strategy will lead to the end of the civil society and the conservation of the regime. And those problems will be answered by next generations of Polish and European politicians. I have a request. Please, if you could finish your speech with a question.
Sure. My name is Kaha Kukhuredi. I represent the Georgian Dream. I'm very pleased to be here, and I would just like to make a short comments about what was discussed here. Very shortly to say, of course, Georgia is progressing and forwarding, and we have implemented a series of reforms regarding the judicial independence. Unfortunately, Georgia inherited totally controlled judiciary, and the first step what was taken by the Georgian Dream was, politically in Georgia, to depoliticize the High Council of Justice, which in turn, of course, is the guarantee of the judicial independence. The second point is that we divide the reforms into 3 directions. The first is economic governance, and we think that the Eastern and European, the policies which have been put on the agenda is in accordance to our European integration. And in my opinion, the association agreement related to In my opinion, the association agreement related to the situation to Georgia, it's the question, of course, I would rather go to the question, but the association agreement which Georgia signed, European Union really puts the situation in a way that I will just take 2 minutes to break and then continue, okay? If that makes sense. No. I just want to send an important message and I will continue very soon. Sorry.
Yeah, like.
Slonenko, European University, Viadrina. I have a question to Boris and Georgian representatives. You mentioned a number of leverages Russia is using to undermine democracy and European integration, like financing different NGO groups or blackmailing political elites and so on. And then if you look at the European Union's policy, which is rather aimed at producing long-term reforms, we see some kind of mismatch. So I was wondering whether you have any ideas what the EU can do to counterbalance this kind of short-term Russian influence, which is aimed at undermining positive developments. And a question to Georgian representative, I just want to understand better why has Russia opened its market for Georgian products, whereas it's closing its market for Moldovan and Ukrainian products. I'm just wondering why this kind of different strategy. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And here, there was
my name is Anastasia Zvada. I am a master's student at the University of Warsaw, and I have a question to Mr. Boris Navarsaryan. You said a lot about Russian propaganda, but you didn't say about how to fight it. And there are a lot of talks about Russian propaganda, and my question is, what is, in your opinion, the best ways how to fight this propaganda? Because, for example, in Ukraine, the Russian TV channels are closed, but there are a lot of NGOs in Ukraine which continue to do its work.
okay.
Thanks.
Are you ready now to finish? Sorry, can you get the mic?
Sorry, I lost the basic, the message what I wanted to say, and let me continue. The association agreement gives the chance to reform Georgia, and the association agreement was recognized by the Georgian government to be the reform agenda for our country. This is what the message I really wanted to send. And regarding the democratization of Georgia, we also see the main messages coming from the association agreement, and at the same time from the new package of the NATO, which also we will do. And unfortunately, I wanted to continue that Georgia inherited a really seriously damaged judiciary, totally controlled. We have made the serious reforms to make the judiciary independent. The second point in this regard is that we have announced the new agenda reform for the Ministry of Interior Affairs, which was also totally politicized in the previous years, and we are progressing in this regard. And at the same time, regarding to answer the security issues, both the EU association agreement policies and at the same time the NATO package is our basic answer to the security point. And at the same time, here was a mentioned serious. Very, just give me a couple of, just 1 minute and I will, 1 minute. And at the same time here was mentioned some challenges regarding the civil society involvement, and all these reforms will be done in accordance, and in cooperation with the civil society. And at the same time here I would like to say a couple of words about our relationship with the Ukraine. We stand shoulder to shoulder with the Ukrainian people in this very difficult situation, and we do expect the same solidarity regarding the Georgia, because we see the annexation of our breakaway regions by the Russian Federation in this time. And here I mentioned also the couple of sentences regarding the oppress of the opposition and the political parties, and I would mention that the free and fair elections have been carried out, several elections during the last years, and these democratic changes are recognized recognized by the international organizations and international institutions, among them the European Union. And there was a question about some economic progress. And I would like to mention that in the third quarter of current year, we experienced to attract the foreign direct investments in a double figure compared to the previous years, which is also very important message that Georgia is progressing and definitely moving on Western integration. And in this regard, we would like to send a very open request and open message that we need to have much more assistance from our Western partners, and this particularly to have door open and initiated the progress regarding the membership according to the 49th article of the EU Treaty.
All right, that was the longest minute I've ever heard.
That's the last question.
This is the last question.
Andrei Podgorski, I representing the Maidan Museum in Warsaw. I have a question is because the situation that the NATO reaction is very weak, and we understand that like mostly West countries, they are not really understanding the situation of bordering with the Russia, and mostly the countries which are really bordering with the Russia, they understand what the situation really is. So maybe it's a good moment to start a closer military cooperation between those countries which are really facing the Russian probably Russian aggression. I mean the countries, for example, the Baltic countries, yeah, the Poland and of course Moldova and a couple other countries. So my question is to the panelists: is it possible to make a closer military cooperation right now? What is doing? Because there is a project, Litpol Kurbrik, yeah, but it's still not working too good. So what are the possibilities? And how it will work? Yeah.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can we come back to the
Nie tylko o Bratkiewiczu, ale i o
Not just about Brankiewicz, but also about you. That was the first question. Generally speaking, the problem is that the European Union assumed in the Eastern Association only one plan, one way of action, and it was a mistake. It assumed that Russia is on some level a partner. Well, of course, everybody looks at it differently. A Frenchman differently, a Pole differently, but generally that it's a partner. And we can hear such declaration even today. For example, Mrs. Merkel says it. Steinmeier often, that only with Russia you can provide security in that region. Of course, it's as a wish, it is true, but my question is a message to societies of the countries of the European Union. So if Russia doesn't want to do this, what does it mean? We won't be safe? So this is the plan B. That's the problem of the plan B, that must take into account different behavior by Russia. And it's impossible on the level of political declaration. It's possible to say anything as a political declaration. So I will not comment what Bratkiewicz has said, but on the level of bureaus, it is impossible to accept because it's a wrong plan. And the conclusion is, as far as security goes, is that the European Union is not effective, and it will not be for a while, maybe one day. Right now, situation in the East and the Eastern Partnership 2.0 project is a good occasion to look at the relations and the cooperation, transatlantic cooperation. There's a question about the American component. can we talk one voice? Can we be one voice with the Americans? Of course, it is not easy because Obama administration doesn't want any problems in this region because they want to concentrate on the Pacific. But today, on the one hand, EU has to want this conversation. On the other, USA has to understand that the security does not only happen on the Pacific. Also, I'd like to comment what Mr. Babinski said, last point, Eastern Partnership 2.0. We don't have to call this that, but I think everybody understands that today we need a so-called new Marshall Plan for each of these three countries because it's a key thing. The speed of the reforms, because if it's not satisfactory, and the money flow is not satisfactory, we will not get a message we want to the broader public opinion, and we will face the question, just like in Moldova. This is my favorite example. We were in Moldova several times before a dilemma. What do? Democracy or pro-European values? Because in order to defend the pro-Western ideology, Moldovan government had to several times use methods that are not part of the democratic instruments. If we don't have the speed of the reforms in all those three countries, and if we don't have a serious contract in these countries for the free trade treaty and the association agreement, we will be facing the situation. What do we do? What do we do? Democracy or a European flow? And I think everybody understands what I'm saying here. If we don't call it 2.0, but we say that it's a Marshall Plan, we need to do that. If we don't do that, we'll be facing catastrophe that Vladimir Putin is just waiting for. Yeah, that's what he's saying. He will be waiting in Donbas. He will see what will happen in Kiev, in Kishinev, or in Tbilisi. Thank you.
Questions about what has to be done from EU side related to this policy of Russia in the fields of NGOs and media. First of all, EU has to be adequate to the situation. It has to realize that we are in the situation of ideological confrontation. So the steps have to be adequate and up to time, which are not. In fact, now the main EU-funded project in Armenia, which is addressed to CSOs, to civil society organization, is completely irrelevant to the situation. And it is very possible that there will be a strong conflict between independent civil society of Armenia and these EU-funded projects and its implementers. EU cannot be now kind to everyone, as it was for a long time. Now, those organizations in Armenia who are serving as Russian agents raise their capacity through many years through EU-funded projects, by US, by the way, as well. There were several mapping exercises, civil society mapping exercises organized by EU. We either never saw the results, they were never published, or the results do not give us any answers who is who in Armenian civil society. I think the same situation is in many other countries. Regarding the new media, new identification of those civil society actors who are committed to European choice needs to be done, and further steps has to be in accordance with that research. About the media, there were several discussions during last month And I can say that some strategy is already developed by media professionals and civil society actors. It has to be implemented somehow. We are too slow, while Russians are very fast in bringing their policies in accordance to the current situation. They change their tactics and strategies every week, while we are discussing for months and doing nothing. So we have to be very reactive. I cannot list all the points of the strategy, it's more than 10. Probably in a private discussion I can share those ideas which were developed. But maybe I will say what should not be done. Clearly, we should not take the same methodology, the same methods as Russians are doing, because we can never be as cynical, as negligent to the professional rules as Russians can do. So if we are using their own weapon, we will lose.
Okay, thank you. This is the Georgian Muslim debate.
No, not at all. Not at all. So first, the question was, what would be the strongest signal in battle with Russian propaganda war? If I understood correctly your question, first part. No? I'm sorry about that. I thought there was kind of answer to this question. The strongest signal in Georgia, in Moldova, in Azerbaijan, in Armenia, in Belarus against Russian propaganda war, delivery of security assistance to Ukraine. A story, a signal, is as strong as it gets. I said it yesterday, I repeat it now. The absence of that statement, of that action, is a very strong negative signal in this ideological war. Another example, delivering a clear message that there is a clear path for Ukraine, for Georgia if it reverses the backsliding, for Moldova if it keeps on the European path towards NATO and EU membership, is the strongest signal against all this soft ideological battle that Putin has thrusted upon us. That's the strongest. And again, the short answer to your question, why did Russia open the market? To have the leverage again to close it. As simple as that. Because they have closed Russian market for Georgia in 2005 to punish Georgia at the time. It didn't work. So now it's time again, with the weak and ambivalent at best government that we have now, to lure us again, to put us on drag again. That's very, very simple. And third, it's finally, I mean, Mr. Koval, I agree with Mr. Koval in 99 cases out of 100. And finally, it's a public occasion for me to disagree with him. I don't think that Moldovan government did anything undemocratic at this election. I think disqualifying somebody who is on the payroll of the hostile foreign countries is the best demonstration of democracy. So we must be careful. I understand what was Pavel's point, I think, but we must be very careful because, again, Yanukovych example is, should the price that Ukrainian people paid because of the treason Yanukovych committed, we should take our benefit from that heroism, not to make the same mistake that somebody is saying, I want to go to Europe, but if he undermines the core of the European consensus, this is a road to Putin. Imprisoning political opponents is geopolitical way to Putin. At least in countries who are aspiring to join European families. And so let's not generalize the situation. But again, and I'm finishing, strong signal that there is a ball game on the other side. So not only Putin acts with weapons, with promises, with money, and with the clearest message. You are with me, you have less trouble. On the other side, the ball game should be as clear as that. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rama.
Just to answer Irina's question very briefly. Well, I mean, we do see that when it comes to Russia and the European Union, we see that Russia is actually offering the benefits, saying that, okay, we can open market whatever you want, and the EU is offering the opportunities. Here, where we need to intervene, and that's what my point was, that actually, in a short run, the clear message and clear tangible result that would be offered to society in Georgia, and believe me, I mentioned that it's 78% of Georgians who are supporting the EU integration, but this is not unconditional support. It's a very fragile support. And if this support is is not, I mean, in exchange of that, there is nothing coming from the European Union. It might go down, and I believe that this is something which needs to be offered is a visa-free travel, which would be beneficial for each and every citizen, because association agreement in the short run is about about the costs, about the regulatory costs, and people would not really take it very easy. On the second point, I just want to add and answer the question regarding this opening of the market. The problem is that this decision and the process itself is not transparent. I personally applied to the Prime Minister's office asking for any kind of protocols if there exists between the Karasin and Mr. Abashidze's meetings, and they said that this is a top secret document, and we don't really know as a citizen, as an ordinary citizen, we don't really know what they are talking about when they meet. So we don't know what are the decisions, what are kind of agreements, and what we are giving instead of getting something. That's very clear. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. The last word is...
Okay. Very short thing, but complex problem, of course, which was mentioned, what to do to counterbalance this pro-Russian propaganda in Georgia. Mr. Bulgaria already spoke about it in a global way. Now it's on. Okay. Yeah. So. What to do to counterbalance Russian propaganda in Georgia? Of course, there are always these dilemmas, which I mentioned also in my speech, that there is genuinely anti-European or pro-Russian opinion, and you cannot sort of suppress it. So democracies cannot do the same things as autocracies can do, but there is at least some obvious things that if the Georgian government, whose official policy is that it is for European and Euro-Atlantic integration, should be very consistent in its messages, in its policies, and distance itself from those groups which are obviously anti-Russian. And of course I don't want to go into this internal Georgian debates and suspicions that this government says it's pro-European but secretly is something else. But it is certainly true that it does directly or indirectly encourage those groups that are anti-European, and this kind of action, of course, creates too welcoming, let's say so, environment for openly pro-Russian propaganda. But otherwise, of course, that's an ongoing debate, if you wish, in Georgian society also, that yes, there is freedom of speech, including for any political platform, including anti-European one, but if Russia is in fact a hostile power to Georgia, it occupies 50% of our territory, it tries to undermine our political choices. When you have direct, clear evidence that certain groups act as instruments of Russian propaganda, there may be a legal way to somehow counter that. Thanks. Yeah, no, I have said it already, but yeah.
Thank you very much. This has been, I think you'll agree with me that this has been a very interesting and useful panel, and two things emerge. One is that the future of Ukraine and the struggle of Ukraine is crucial to everyone, and everyone must support it. And secondly, how much we talk about Russia, which 2 years ago wasn't the case. So this is Mr. Putin's achievement. Thank you very much indeed. Please show appreciation by giving a round of applause to our panelists.